Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a video topic for you I think is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but I am not entirely sure, and it's something that I've been wanting to film about for a while, but not really sure how it was going to be received, not really sure what kind of controversy it would bring up, but I decided, especially because I'm going to be very shortly here filming a YouTube video series that is entirely devoted to different kinds of BDSM play, that I need to address that particular topic first. And that topic would be minors in BDSM. Now, for a frame of reference, I am 22 years old. I started to get involved in BDSM when I was 20, so I was well above the age of majority. Of course, when I was a teenager, I did have sort of those flirtatious text messages, like sort of the talking naughty to each other. I knew probably by the time I was maybe 17 that I was interested in sort of an alternative lifestyle, and I didn't necessarily want the kind of sexual interaction, the kind of physical interaction with people that maybe was normal that other people wanted when I was a teenager, but I never physically participated with anybody else. However, I do know a lot of people when they were younger, and they're still involved in the BDSM community now, and they're, 25, 28, 35, whatever. They started when they were younger. They started when they were 16 and when they were 17, and I'll kind of go over that as I go on, because this is probably going to be a long video. It's going to be a rambly video because my thoughts on this particular subject are nuanced and very, like, I have a lot of different levels of thinking about this particular thing and a lot of different reasons why I don't think minors participating in BDSM is a good idea. So the first angle I'm going to go from is probably the most common aspect that people think about this, and this is the sort of maturity argument, I'll call it. And people argue that they're 15, they're 16, they say, well, I'm mature for my age. I'm mature for being 15, I'm mature for being 16, I'm mentally prepared for being involved in a BDSM relationship, being involved in a BDSM lifestyle. Okay, fair enough. I don't know you. Maybe you are very mature for your age. But that's not really what it's about. It's not just about being I'm mature for my age in a very blanket sense. You have to be in a stable position. You have to be able to cope with the things that potentially could go wrong. You need to have good communication skills. You need to have a very solid personal identity of who you are. You need to have a solid sense of boundaries and limits. You need to be able to devote time to doing research for what you actually want to do, so that way you are prepared for when you actually go into this lifestyle, what you might get into, what are some warnings, what are some red flags to look out for. And when you're 15 and 16 and like really interested in getting into BDSM, you probably don't have the necessary communication skills. You probably don't have that very complete, accurate sense of self that is complete and is stable. You probably don't have the time necessarily to have devoted to doing all that research and to being prepared to actually being in this lifestyle. So you could say that you are, in a blanket sense, mature, and of course, there are times and there are individuals that are mature for being 15, that are mature for being 16, that are maybe more mature than 18-year-olds, because there are definitely 20-year-olds that aren't mature enough, that aren't as mature as 18-year-olds. It's really hard to say, as a blanket statement that no 15-year-old is mentally prepared for being part of BDSM. And I'm going to go into momentarily kind of why it isn't just about the mental aspect of how the legal issues surrounding it are very important. Because the risk of something going wrong when you're 15 and 16 and both you and your partner are brand new to BDSM, very high. And you need to be able to cope with that, because BDSM is not a safe thing. BDSM is a very dangerous thing. There is a reason why we have something called RAC that people follow, or they follow SSC, which is a different thing, but it's risk-aware kink, because it is risky, and you cannot mitigate all of the risks, potentially, depending on what kind of play that you're doing. And when you're 15 and 16, you don't necessarily have the capacity for being aware of all the potential risks, of being able to mitigate all of the risks. You don't necessarily have the background of resources to being able to mitigate all of those potential risks. And before I get into the legal argument against minors participating in BDSM, because that's going to be kind of like my ending point, I want to talk about more about the learning aspect, about the actual community participation and being a minor in BDSM. Because the reason why I want to bring up this topic is because I see a lot of it online. I see a lot of minors online trying to follow me on my very clearly not safe for work 18 plus, do not follow me if you are not 18 Instagram account, or saying they're 13 and want to start a DS relationship, on my YouTube comments or whatever, and fine if you want to watch my videos. I am fine with people educating themselves if they are 15 and 16. Because I know that even though I really think that people shouldn't, people are going to participate anyways, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. But I would much rather provide content and provide information that I think is age appropriate. And I like being able to produce that kind of content because I know that regardless of what people say, teenagers are still going to participate and I can't stop that. So I would rather provide them with accurate information. I'd rather make sure that they know how to do things safely if they do decide to do it, despite everyone telling them not to. I would rather they have access to information. So I don't have any problem with people doing research. I don't have any problem doing, all the informational background because I think it does prepare you, and it is very important to have that research and that base of knowledge. Maybe you are 15 and you're not going to participate, but you want to spend 3 years researching all this, to which I say, awesome, great job, good decision. Yeah, I applaud that. That's a good choice to make instead of like being a 15-year-old and like trying to go online and buy a flogger. Much smarter decision in my personal book. In online is different than the real life BDSM community. It's very different because a lot of times, yes, there is FetLife, but most of the time, people who are younger and interested in BDSM, they're on Instagram and they're on Tumblr, and they are sort of all ages. There's really not a way to successfully age restrict people from being able to access certain content on the internet, and that's just how it is. FetLife, you have to be 18 plus, but I have found and reported accounts that are definitely not 18, and so there are people who slip through the cracks. But when you are in the real life BDSM community, which for me is the most important part about being in BDSM, is being able to access physical resources. If you are not 18, you will not be able to get into a BDSM club of any repute. You will not be able to go into a sex store in order to get toys or get floggers. You will not be able to go to a BDSM event. You will not be able to go to conferences or classes. You will not be able to find the real-life resources that will allow you to do BDSM in a safe, sane, and consensual manner. You will not be able to have access to the resources because you are underage. And in the real-life BDSM community, if you are underage, you cannot participate. End of story. This is not a topic for discussion, and it kind of frustrates me that it is such a topic of discussion on the internet because real life, you're not 18. It doesn't matter if you are 17-year-olds and 364 days. If you are not 18, you cannot participate. You cannot go to clubs. But the moment you turn 18, is this your 18th birthday and you want to fucking go to a BDSM club for your 18th birthday, you do it. I encourage you to go because I think that would be an awesome 18th birthday. You can go. But until that point, people in the real life BDSM community will not associate with you. And that is for a very good reason. BDSM, even in the real life community, probably I would say until at least the 90s, was not even a safe place for adults, and is not a safe place for children. It wasn't that long ago, and based on the things that I've heard from elders in the community, I would probably say, again, until probably at least the 80s, and if you watch a movie like Secretary, you will see that this is the case, is BDSM was seen as so taboo and so dangerous and so outside the norm. The only way we could find each other was through coded messages in the newspaper and through coded messages in newsletters and things like that online. And as we got more into the 90s and we got more into the age of the internet, things got more open. But for a very, very long time, for the vast majority of the history of BDSM, it was not a safe thing, even for adults to openly admit that they were a part of, because it was so taboo. And I see teenagers and I see children, like actual children, like 12 and 11-year-olds who want to participate in BDSM, as making BDSM an unsafe place for adults, even though it's only been a couple of years really in the scope of things that BDSM has even been a safe place for adults. We have just now, and probably I want to say the last like 15-20 years, been able to openly participate in BDSM, been able to openly find each other on websites and the internet, and not necessarily have to worry about like the cops arresting us or like getting arrested for domestic violence, although these things are still very much risk and can still very much happen depending on the places where you live in the world, depending on the communities you are a part of. But it wasn't long ago where it wasn't a safe place for adults. And now I see children trying to participate in it, and they're making it an unsafe place for adults. And what I mean by that is when adults are going to BDSM clubs, when they're going to BDSM events, when they are going on newsletters, when they're going on FetLife, when they are on dating apps, they are trying to find other consenting adults. They are trying to find other people who are 18 plus. And even then, a lot of people, especially older people, don't even want people that are close to 18. They want somebody who has experience. They want somebody who has knowledge, who has been able to be part of the community for a while. And if people are lying about their age, or even if they're not lying about their age and they want to be 16, you can't be in relationships with those kinds of people. It's very dangerous because it's one thing to say you are two 25-year-olds and you're in a consenting BDSM relationship, and being a 15-year-old with a 25-year-old saying you're in a consenting BDSM relationship. The cops, the legal system is not going to be okay with that. They're barely okay, if they are okay, with two 25-year-olds saying they're in a consenting BDSM relationship. It's something that is, again, so outside the norm. It's so weird to so many people. They can't understand why people would want to consent to this kind of thing, to the point where they believe people can't consent to this kind of thing. Now to kind of expand on this point and getting more into the legal issue of things. In addition to the maturity argument, I see the age of consent argument, which is saying the age in my state for consent is blank. I am above the age of consent in my state. Therefore, I can consent to being in BDSM. Rules around the age of consent are not geared for BDSM. They are not geared for involvement in BDSM. They are geared for people consenting to sexual relations with each other. And if you believe that BDSM is just sex, you are not ready for BDSM, because BDSM is so much more than just sex. It is so much more complicated. There is so much more baggage associated with BDSM than just sex. And I don't want necessarily to degrade sex as not being important, but it is a lot more complicated issue than just a matter of being able to consent to sex or not. The age that people use in order to determine if somebody is able to participate in BDSM is the age of majority. What the age of majority means is you have autonomous control over your body. You are no longer the responsibility of your parents. Now, we can make the argument that people have autonomous control over their bodies from birth, and that people are all, conscious individuals and they're able to make their own choices. That's fine. Legal system does not agree, though. The legal system, at least, again, speaking as an American, speaking as somebody who only knows the American legal system, children, that is, anybody under the age of 18, anybody who is a minor, does not have full responsibility or full control over their bodies. And when you are participating in BDSM, you are giving up control of your body to another human being. At the most basic level, that is how I conceive BDSM, is you are giving up control to another person, be that temporarily in like a top-bottom relationship, be that permanently in a master-slave relationship. But if your body is not your own, if your body is under still the influence of your parents, if your parents are still responsible for you physically in some way, you cannot consent to BDSM because your body is not your own to give. And that sucks, and I'm sorry, and I know that it's very unfortunate, especially for a lot of people who have home situations that are not healthy and not emotionally supportive, to have parents who still have control over your body and are still responsible for you in some way. And legal emancipation before your age, totally right, you could go there. But until you're 18, you are not of the age of majority. You cannot consent to give your body to somebody else. And I'm going to give an example here, and this is a theoretical example. This is not something I've actually seen happen. But let's say you're 15 years old, and you are in your parents' basement with your boyfriend who is playing Dom for the evening. And you decide you want to do some really cool, sexy rope. And one of you went to the hardware store and got some paracord. Fine. Whatever, I guess. That's not the rope I would use, but that is what a 15-year-old would have access to for rope. And so you were doing some rope, and he's tying you up. It's all like sexy and hot, and wow, it's totally what you've always wanted. And something goes wrong. He instead of doing the kind of knot he planned on doing, and it catches and it tightens down really badly, and suddenly you're losing feeling in your limbs, and you're feeling numb, and you're experiencing a lot of nerve pain. Well, that sucks, right? Well, you're 15 years old, and you're not allowed to go to any shibari classes in real life. You don't know anybody else who's doing this. You don't have anybody you can ask for advice. You don't have access to the kind of resources online that you should be able to before participating in BDSM to be able to tell that this is even a problem necessarily. And you're in a lot of pain, but you either don't know how to handle it, you don't know how to rectify it, or you don't have a way to fix it, something like that. Let's say this person didn't buy safety scissors because they only thought rope bondage. That's all you need, right? They didn't realize that you also needed to be safe and you need to have a way to get the rope off in an emergency situation. So they're trying to like cut the rope off because they realize that there's a problem. Maybe they don't. They just think that's how rope's supposed to feel. But if they do, and I'm glad that they notice that something is wrong, they're trying to cut through the rope using a pair of kitchen scissors. And they're cutting through the rope, and let's say they're going over somebody's thigh, right? Potentially, while they're trying to cut off the rope, they're going over somebody's thigh, and then they get a really big cut down that person's leg. Well, shit, not only does this person potentially have, like, possible nerve damage, they potentially have, like, permanent scarring, and depending on the leg that you were cutting and where the vein is actually located versus where you were cutting, that person could be bleeding out and potentially dying now, right? And this is a very extreme scenario, but you're 15 years old. You potentially don't even have a learner's permit, and you could be in a lot of trouble with your parents. So what do? Do you risk all the punishment and all the bad things that could happen to you because you were messing with your girlfriend downstairs in your parents' basement? Do you call the police? Do you call the fire department? Do you call some sort of a medical emergency response? Or do you try and hide it because you're so afraid of the repercussions because you know that what you just did was wrong and you don't have a way to fix it? That could be a very bad situation, and it's not the kind of situation I want anybody to be in, and that's why I don't want minors to participate in BDSM, is because dangerous shit like that happens, and it could happen regardless of what age you are, but it is so much more likely to happen when you're of age because you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have access to the kinds of tools that you need in order to do things safely. All of this being said, I do know a lot of people who started out doing BDSM with other people when they were teenagers. Let's say they were as young as 15, maybe they were 17, whatever. They started out when they were young and they were playing around with their girlfriends or playing around with their boyfriends, but they were doing it with other minors. And yes, they could have a very risky situation like that. But another problem that I've seen, especially come up in the online community, is publicly advertising that you are into BDSM when you are 15 draws predators. It draws people who do not want the best for you emotionally, mentally, physically. It is just putting you in a very like risky place. And not only could it get you in trouble from your parents, it could also get you in trouble legally, especially if you are interacting and asking for like a sugar daddy or a daddy dom at 15 or 16 and you want like a 25-year-old daddy dom. Like that potentially could get you in a lot of legal trouble. It could get them in a lot of legal trouble. Being openly a minor in BDSM is not a good thing. It is not something to be proud of. If you are a minor and you must participate in BDSM, I beg you, for all that is good, do so privately, do so with people that are in your own age group, do so with your peers, but don't do it online asking for daddy doms. That is just opening you up to such a world of potential hurt. And I can't endorse that. I just can't. Not in like what I think is the best interest of the people that interact with me on YouTube and the people that I know want to participate in this at a young age. Please don't. Please just wait or do it with people that are your own age. At least that is all I can ask. But be prepared for the consequences. Do your research. If you really, really must participate, make sure you are prepared and make sure you know the risks. But everybody that I know that started out when they were 15 or 16, looking back on it, having the experience that they do now, having the resources that they do now, they know that they put themselves in a lot of very needlessly risky situations because they were dumb teenagers. And not to say that all teenagers are dumb, but they specifically were dumb teenagers and they openly admit to this. But I don't want to keep making this like a big, long, like rambly video. But to summarize, there are a lot of reasons why minors should not participate in BDSM. It is not about the age of consent. It is not about being mature for your age. It is about the legal and physical ramifications that could result because BDSM is seen as taboo. BDSM is an inherently risky activity and you could not mitigate all of those risks away. If you are a minor openly participating in BDSM online, you are opening yourself up to potential predators and potential abuse. And when you are a minor who participates in BDSM, there is a risk that you don't have the mental, emotional, physical maturity that you need in order to cope if something goes wrong. And I do not want anybody who is 15 years old to be more emotionally scarred than they are just by inherently being a teenager, by doing something very bad and very risky in a BDSM relationship, or worse, ending up in a long-term abusive BDSM relationship when they're underage because you don't have the resources or the support that you need in order to get out of that kind of situation. And I don't want anybody to have anything go wrong. I don't want anybody to take on any risks or anything that they don't need to at a young age. Just focus on being a teenager, focus on surviving high school, focus on getting out from under the guise of your parents, focus on becoming the kind of person you want to be. Devote that energy that you want to use for being part of BDSM to making yourself a better person, to making yourself be the kind of person who's ready for BDSM. Focus your energy internally. Focus on like survival as a teenager, you know? Focus on just getting the fuck through high school and worry about BDSM later because it is awesome and we will totally welcome you once you are 18 and you are ready. But until then, please just be safe. Just wait. Do the smart thing. And I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. So if you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns about this particular topic and what I talked about today, please leave that down below in the comment section. If you want to see more videos like this and want to get more information about me, my channel, my social media, please look at the description box down below. I do also have a Patreon account, so if you found this video helpful and you like my content and want to support this channel and see more, please also consider looking at my Patreon account. Really, every single dollar does super matter and it makes such a big difference. But until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye bye.